Yo, what up, guys? Jacques Slade here. Welcome to the Outside the Box podcast. This is officially episode number 3, and we don't stop no matter where we are in the world. I just happen to be in London right now, but we love you guys so much that we didn't want to miss a show. When I say we, obviously I'm talking about the really important people that are part of this podcast, because I could not do this by myself. Nick, tell them who you are, what you do, and all of that good stuff.
Nick Engvall. I've been doing the sneaker thing. Did a couple years at Complex, did a couple years at Finish Line, helped start StockX over the last couple of years. So, but more important than me, we have Tiffany Beers here, who is going to be totally humble, but she's definitely the most important person on the show.
I'm Tiffany Beers. I worked at Nike for 13 years. I worked at Rubbermaid for a couple years. And I worked at Tesla for a short 6 months. So
you see,
take it away,
you see that, Nick? We peeled back a layer today. There was a layer peeled back today of Rubbermaid. I wasn't aware of the Rubbermaid past for Tiffany Beers. I won't get into it, but I figure she probably made some sort of device there that she's being super humble about as well.
Yep,
some
probably.
Sort of mechanical thing. It keeps your food warm or cold depending on how you want it, or stores it somewhere in a cool, dry place, and you don't even have to think about it. And you push a button and it looks zzz, and then it makes sounds just like I'm just saying, if it's the Tiffany I know, that she's holding back on us. She's holding back on us. Anyway, again, to the audience, welcome to a new show. Thank you guys for all the support you guys have given us so far. Really appreciate it. All of the comments and everything. They've been really great. Have you guys seen any comments in particular that you want to point out, or anything kind of comes to mind? Any comments that you guys want to talk about?
Nothing specifically, but it's just been really awesome to see everybody supporting, and I just really appreciate the opportunity to have the conversations with you two, and then to have people that actually enjoy listening. It's phenomenal to me. So
yeah, I think the support's been awesome. I love that there's people wanting to be guests. I think we should think about that at some point.
Absolutely.
Maybe some interviews.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I saw one comment last week that I wanted to bring to your attention. It's going to kind of kick off the show. It was by a gentleman, I'm assuming a gentleman named BK to Harlem. That could be a woman who went from BK to Harlem. So a person that traveled from BK to Harlem wrote, "Custom equals fake. If Nike did not produce it, then..." They said it's trash. I'm assuming they're saying then it's trash. So I want to kind of get a barometer on you guys. What do you think about the whole custom shoes are fake shoes if they're not actually made by, I guess, the distributor or the manufacturer in this situation?
I think it's really interesting. Fakes. I'm not a fan of fakes. Like direct copies, definitely not a fan of. I don't appreciate that business whatsoever. But some of the customs, I think they're doing some really interesting things. The question would be, is the original product underneath it real or fake? Because I've seen some of those too. I don't really know where I stand on this. It's such a good question because it depends on what they're doing with it. On some level, are they taking the creativity from the brands, or are they sharing it? Or I'd love to know what the brands think of it. I'm guessing they're okay with it because these customs are all out there, all over the place. It doesn't seem like they're really shutting them down that much.
Yeah, no. So I'm on your side, and that's Nick. You tried to jump in here as well, so you go ahead and give your 2 cents.
I think just like Tiffany said, there's so many different variations of what that all looks like, right? Like if the product is legitimate, I think it's a fun thing, and more importantly, it's like a stepping stone for people to get into the business of sneakers. You've seen people go from like painting shoes to legitimately working for brands and creating, there's a couple of people that I won't call anybody out, but there's a couple of people at both Nike and Adidas that I can remember 15 years ago finding them on Nike Talk, doing colorways custom for people, but they eventually got into the design side and the coloring side of working with the brands or working for the brands. So I mean, I think that like that's a really cool opportunity. I do think that saying that fakes, all customs are fake is a little bit too hardline, because I also am old enough to where like I painted shoes when I was a kid, or I wrote my name on the bottoms and on the sides and the midsoles and stuff like that in certain pairs. And does that make it fake? I mean, I don't feel like it, but like I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something here.
No, I think you're dead on. So I'm gonna throw I'm gonna mix things up a little bit. So what if someone takes an Air Jordan 1, a real Air Jordan 1, and customizes it to look like an off-white Air Jordan 1? Is that considered fake?
Yeah,
Yes,
I think that's definitely an odd choice, right? Like if you're that hungry for the attention to have that special pair or whatever it is, that seems like a bigger issue, but we won't get into that. We're not psychologists, so yeah.
Yeah, that's copying. That's not customizing. Yeah. Like, copying's not okay. But if they actually did something interesting with it, then that could be cool. Although, saying that, I remember when the Nike mag came out, and the first time I saw people painting it, I was like, what are you doing? Like, it took so long to get those materials perfect. What are you doing? Like, I was really frustrated with it because I didn't want people painting them. And now you see them painted all the time, and I think they look stupid, most of them, but there's a few cool ones out there. But I think if it's just for attention and not for like something truly custom and cool, I like it when it's truly custom and cool, not copies. And I don't consider it fakes either. That's fake. Fake is a powerful word to be using.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the other thing that there's guys like Dominic, the shoe surgeon, or and some of the other customizers that have turned it into opportunities to work with the brands to create specific shoes for events. And like the work that goes into that, especially when they're doing like handmade reconstructed shoes. I mean, it's to me, if I'm them, like it's the ultimate slap in the face is if somebody calls it a fake. And I don't think that, I think that's why you can't really just generalize everything. I can totally understand, the frustration of somebody that sees, like you said, somebody, trying to recreate a different, version of a shoe or whatever. But yeah, it's a little aggressive to call all customs fakes.
Got it. Okay, last and final little mix up to this one here. So I recently worked on a project that I actually probably can't really speak about, but one of the touching points was saying the word fake versus saying the word replica. Is there a difference to you two? And then I'll kind of explain my side of that. But I kind of want to get your thoughts on that, fake versus replica.
I actually have an interesting kind of question for both of you around that then. The mag is kind of the pinnacle shoe when it comes to, I would say, replicas, right? Because there's like the Nike mag, and then there's the mag that was made by, by the movie studio, and that was sold at, whatever, $50 or $100. I don't remember how it was, but it's like very like, this is just like kind of a, wear it for your Halloween costume type quality. How do you both feel about that?
I don't think I can disclose how I honestly feel about
Fair
it.
enough.
I think replica to me indicates that there's some history there, and like maybe that there's a replica because the original can't be reproduced or something, the original ran out. Where fake is totally like you're copying it for, maybe you're completely unassociated with the original cause or original purpose, and so you're just duplicating it to make money. Okay. So I kind of associate those two a bit differently, and I think replicas are okay when, so the Nike mag, it was a replica that gave money to the Michael J. Fox Foundation, right? Like, right. Nike did not profit from that product, just from the PR, you know? So, like, in that scenario, totally cool with it. But, like, I had to review a lot of fakes while I was at Nike because they would pop up on the internet constantly. And so it was really interesting to look at those and see. And in most cases, those were all purely for someone to make a buck off of the hype of that product.
Did you happen to see any fakes with the self-lacing technology in it? Just out of curiosity.
Not working, but there definitely were some out there. Like HyperAdapt. There was a HyperAdapt fake that was online, and it had elastic laces in it, so you didn't have to lace it, but it wasn't HyperAdapt technology.
Interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. Okay. All right. I just wanted to, put our foot in the water with that one. But moving on. But before we move on, just to let you guys know, this show is sponsored by the Lacers competition. We'll give you more insight on the Lacers a little bit later, but we just want to make sure we bring them up because they're really good sponsors of this channel. They take care of us. And this show wouldn't happen if it wasn't for the Lacers and the Lacers competition. All right, moving on. So next up we have shoes, which is the world's first modular tech travel shoe. Found these over on Kickstarter, I believe it was. And my first thought was, this is not something that I would wear. I get the idea behind it, but I just don't know if it's advanced enough for someone with discerning amount of taste. Is that a bad way to say that? I don't know. What do you guys think about the modular shoes being able to take the tooling off of one and put the upper of another one on top of it to change outfits, I guess, for different parts of the day?
I mean, I think that the idea is interesting and probably has a lot of potential. The functionality that this particular shoes, SHOOZ, Kickstarter is not quite as interesting to me, but also I think it's more interesting to me because I feel like if you've been in the sneaker world for a while, I'm pretty sure it was John Geiger that actually did this with Air Force Ones, right? And made the tops of the shoes, like the upper could completely unzip and you could zip it to the midsole and outsole. So I don't know. What is that? Imitation is the greatest form of flattery?
I think it's interesting. I mean, this has been around for quite some time. I mean, I remember seeing this years ago, literally. And it's interesting, right? They're going after the market of, like, having one shoe, but something adjustable or changeable on it. So it can be your day shoe and your night shoe. It can be your game shoe and your club shoe. I think that's interesting. I would think that the uppers on these maybe are not so comfortable.
Yeah, right.
But I've never actually tried them. So I think it's an interesting concept, but knowing that it's been out for a couple years, I'm guessing they're having some challenges in getting it moving forward. Because I think I'm trying to find on there if this is definitely not the first Kickstarter that it's been in.
Oh, okay. So this is the first I've heard of it, and it just I think I was along the same boat with you. I was like, those uppers can't possibly fit like snug to your foot or fit very comfortably. Like if they're supposed to be swapped in and out, I just don't feel like they can be attached in a way that makes them comfortable and fit very well. But again, you're more of the engineer of the three of us here, Tiffany, and if you think that way, then I'm pretty sure that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, how does I think of the flex zone, right? So right around your forefoot where your foot bends, how does that zipper bend and deal with that, right? Because a lot of shoes are notched there, and you'll see notches in the outsole and the midsole, so that flex happens. But when you have a straight zipper going completely around it, I'm not sure what that does. Like that seems like a kind of a fit, maybe irritation potential. But
looking at the Kickstarter too, it like dates back to 2016 was the estimated delivery initially. And like it seems like they've gotten a lot of press too, right? Like they have the Boston Globe, Footwear News, GQ, Vogue, all that kind of coverage. But I think the interesting, like to me, like they're trying to sell it too as if like you could run in these shoes. And to Tiffany's point about the flex zone, right? Like you could wear like hard bottoms, for whatever during the day, and you could wear a slightly more casual, dress version or takedown version of that to go out to dinner or the club or whatever. But like if they're thinking that like people are gonna do any form of exercise in that shoe, I think that it's just completely problematic.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, and looking at I guess the more interesting thing is looking at these articles and seeing like what articles have featured it. Like none of them are like sneaker sites, are like performance sites. Oh no, I take that back. They have Kick Lace here, but they don't have. It's not like Runner's World or Men's Running or Women's Running or Fitness Mag or any of those kind of places, or Sneaker News or Complex or Nice Kicks. Like none of those places are on the list. This is like, entrepreneur.com, Fox News, Yahoo Finance, Fashion Mag, The Smart Traveler. Like it's all the places that would see something like this and be like, oh, that's cool. That's a great thing, but not really think about it, I guess, strategically or analytically and be like, how is that really going to work? Because even shoes that have the tops, the uppers that are like sewn and glued to the tooling, half the time those have problems with that flex zone. So I can imagine how difficult it is for someone to swap out a piece to make that sort of area work. But again, I've never tried them on, so I may be talking out of the side of my neck, and they may be the most comfortable shoes in the world. So
Jacques, you're traveling right now,
yes.
Right? So, as a traveler, though, with someone that travels a lot, do you like the concept? I mean, that you'd only take one bottom with you, but you could take 3 or 4 uppers, basically?
I mean, I guess theoretically it's a good idea, but like, I like a specific type of running shoe, so I don't know, like this shoe, like for me, I guess I would be more interested in the outsole being able to change than I would be of the upper being able to change. I think that's more of a need for me than it would be. I mean, these have outsoles or toolings that change, but I just don't see. Yeah, I don't see how they'd be able to get something that I can get out and I can do 6 to 10 miles in it, and then be able to put that same shoe back on with a fancier upper and wear that around or go to a meeting or something like that. I just don't see it, and let alone go from a runner to like a dressier shoe to something that I can play basketball in, which I just don't see that happening. But again, who am I? Okay. Speaking of uppers and tooling, Tiffany sent an article in our group chat, because we do have a group chat, guys, because we are friends with Tiffany. FYI. It's not just the podcast, people. I just want to put that out there. She sent an article over of shoes made out of pineapple leaves for Boss, or AKA Hugo Boss. So seeing this article makes me think of like the whole sustainability when it comes to shoes. From what I understand as a layman in this regard, a lot of materials are wasted when you make shoes, and a lot of those materials aren't necessarily natural fibers or naturally based fibers, and so that ends up causing a lot of waste. But it seems like something like this could help alleviate a lot of that, or at least not alleviate it, but allow, I guess, a material that can be cycled and used again. How big is that an impact on, like, from the work that you've done, Tiffany? And is this something that you see is sustainable? And is this the direction that you think the business is going in?
I don't know if I can answer all of your questions, but I I think it's really interesting, right? Like, use an existing material that is made by the earth. I love it. You know, and I think it would depend on, again, shoes are so important. Like, how do they fit and how do they feel on, especially a classic silhouette like this. So this is just like a super classic, simple silhouette. If that material works and they're comfortable and it looks good, which it looks good in the pictures, then I think it would be sustainable. Not having to re-engineer a material for this shoe or use a potential other material that you don't know what the sustainability maybe is of it. I can see the upside to this drastically. But I would be curious about price, actually. How's the price of that material per yard versus another material that might be cheaper? I would imagine this is a little bit more expensive because it's kind of novel. However, I don't know enough about the vegan movement to know if, like, I thought vegan meant, like, mostly food, and I see that people are addressing it in other ways of their life, like making sure everything's vegan, including products. Right. Is that true?
Yeah, it's called a plant-based lifestyle. Yeah, I'm not there. Be honest, I like a burger, and I like leather. Now we're gonna get hate comments from vegans and plant-based people. Not plant-based people; they're actual people. They eat plant. I don't. You know what I'm.
Oh man, you're digging us a hole, man. You're digging us a hole.
Yeah, digging a hole. So yeah. Anyway, your thoughts. Nick?
So I just checked, and the price on the shoe is $348, which, you know, I think that's a little high, but it's Hugo Boss, so you're paying for the name just as much as you're paying for that technology, probably. I mean, I think it's awesome. Right. I would love to see more of this kind of stuff. If it can, I think the challenge with any of this stuff is making it obviously the technology behind it and finding materials that are sustainable and aren't doing damage to our world. But, like, I think that also the nature of lost my train of thought here. The nature of, like, just, like, being aware of what you're buying is never going to be a thing that should go away, in my opinion. Like, I mean, looking at, like, recycled materials, you know, from plastic bottles or whatever, I think that's just always a good thing if we can incorporate it more and make it fit into the world that it already exists, the sneaker world that already exists.
Yeah, I think so too. And I guess another factor I like about it is, I mean, we don't have pineapple leaves here in Oregon. I'm pretty sure we don't. But, like, if in, like, Hawaii and where they do have pineapple leaves, like, that's the shoes that are in that area, you know? Like, in Oregon here, we'd have to have, like, a pine needle shoe, maybe, or a different sustainable material. But, like, materials that are local and sustainable where they're at is, I think, an awesome concept. And same thing, like, if you see someone with the pineapple shoe, you know they got it potentially somewhere where that plant exists. Like that, I think those are interesting stories and ways of looking at this type of product.
I guess for me, like, I'm all for, like, the plant-based and being sustainable and recyclable and all that stuff as well. But I think it's going to take a shift, or it's going to take a way for those sorts of materials or those things to fit into the current pop culture lexicon, both, like, verbally and style-wise. I feel like a lot of times you see things like that and they have a certain look to them that isn't necessarily part of the current trends. I think once they're able to do that, I feel like this opens up the doors for that stuff to be a lot more accepted. It's kind of like, I guess I'm just be bashing vegetarians today. That, you know, everybody wants to eat healthier. Like, we all get that. But it's not until, like, they started making vegetarian food taste like meat food that people were like, oh, okay, yeah, I can have a plant-based burger because it tastes like an actual burger as opposed to tasting like a plant. And there's the end of the Outside the Box podcast. Thanks, guys. Glad we started this show. All right. All right. Let's keep it moving before I dig myself into too many of a hole there. Got a bit of a combined topic here. Roger Federer is talking about leaving Nike. There's rumors that he's leaving Nike. And then we also have the NBA Finals that just ended with Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors defeating LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm going to start with the whole athlete endorsement thing, because that seems to be a big topic of discussion on the internet, whether or not they help a brand at all, whether it's worth it for a brand to sign a big celebrity athlete. I'm in the side that it is. I think it helps as far as brand recognition goes. I think it helps both the athlete and it helps the brand getting the word out about a particular shoe. For instance, the LeBron 15, great shoe. I love the battle knit on the upper, the full zoom. Like, it's great to play in. But I wonder, would I still pay as much attention to that shoe if LeBron's name wasn't attached? And saying that makes me think, am I now a hype beast because I only mess with sneakers that have an athlete attached to them? But I hope that's not the case. So I'll toss that to one of you. What do you think? Is there a value in Roger Federer staying with Nike, or are they good with or without him?
I mean, personally, I think tennis is a completely different beast than basketball or, retro product or anything. It's been such a hard sell. I think because you haven't had a whole lot of competition, and it's such a, I don't know what the right word is, like when you had the Andre Agassi kind of flair and this big, persona out there. Like, Roger Federer is clearly like one of the best athletes ever, and same with Rafa Nadal, right? Like, both of them are incredible athletes, but they're very subdued personalities. So I don't think they sell a lot of product necessarily. When you can bring Roger Federer in and do like the Jordan 3 Federer, I forget what the Vapor Max AJ3, whatever that hybrid shoe was. I think it's really cool that you can tie those things together and tell those stories, and like how potentially other athletes are inspired by other athletes. I think like the biggest thing for me is the amount of money that Uniqlo is sending is supposedly saying roughly 3 times the amount that Nike offered him at this point. And I think that, for one, I can see Nike probably thinking that, hey, this is a player that's, obviously past his peak and probably not going to be playing as for much longer at a competitive level. So how much celebrity do you really have beyond his playing years, right? But I do think that like you said, we're all kind of attracted to the stars, because if they're the setting the bar for what the world wants to be in that particular sport, then they become the pinnacle of that. Like, you have LeBron and KD and Steph Curry, and we all watch them more than we watch other athletes, because they're the best, but they're also going to be, they're also just going to have more airtime across all platforms. They're going to have more opportunities to work with other brands, so you're going to see them and feel like you know them more. So I think personally for Roger Federer, it would probably be pretty awesome to see him kind of diversify and go, and see what else is out there. But I also think that like there's something to be said about, on the basketball side, the legacy of a player. I think of like Kevin Garnett, right? Like, Kevin Garnett basically wore 7, maybe 8 different brands throughout his career. Played on all these different, on all these different teams, and people either remember him for, his Timberwolves days as a really young, fresh out of high school player that was like pretty dominant and pretty entertaining to watch, or they remember, the Celtics winning the title and, that first kind of super team, so to speak. So I don't know. I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if athletes didn't sell product, people wouldn't pay them money, right? Like, plain and simple, like supply and demand. They absolutely do. And for me, being really focused on function, like I automatically assume, okay, Roger's the best, so everything surrounding him makes him the best. Like I'm sure he picks the best product to help with his game, especially, he's one of the older athletes. Most athletes are pretty young. And I think back of when I was playing sports a lot, like when I was a teenager, it didn't matter. The product to me did not matter. I played how I played. It wasn't like an actual product made me better than another product, I don't think, which I think applies to these guys on some level. However, the moment you put on a hyped up product, mentally you play better, right? So those athletes are hyping that product, and without that hype of that product, they're making them, superhuman. The athletes these days are almost superhuman. I think that's what that's what they are selling, and that's what I'm interested in. That's what the consumer is buying now. But there's something to be said. Roger's been with Nike for so long. Like, will he ever not be Nike? I mean, it's not like he's been to a lot of brands, Like, can he actually take the swoosh off and not be associated with Nike? I don't know, man. That's a tough one.
Yeah, I think
for LeBron.
The article said 21 years he'd been with Nike. So, I mean, and for me, like, I won't ever think of him with anybody else. Anything beyond it, it would take a massive amount of campaigning, a massive amount of marketing, and a massive amount of whatever content they create to kind of support that new deal for me to even associate him to any other brand,
That's a good point. Like anyone else that signs him has an uphill battle just to first disassociate him with Nike, let alone associate him with another brand. That's an uphill battle in itself. Yeah. I get that. That makes sense. All right. Before we go on, we got some hot stories to talk about, you guys. But I just definitely wanted to give some love to our sponsors, the Lacers competition, and we received a letter this week of some people at the Lacers competition. They were upset with the way that Tiffany and I described the competition last week. They said in the letter that we apparently made it sound amateur, and the Lacers Lacing Players Association was not happy with our choice of words. They like what we do on this show. However, they do wish we would act a bit more professional when speaking about the Lacers competition. So with that being said, I do want to make an apology to Bob. It was inappropriate for me to discuss Bob's position and Bob being disqualified. Apparently, it was under, he was appealing the decision by the Lacers competition board, and I wasn't aware of that, so I spoke prematurely, and Bob was allowed to actually be in the competition this Sunday over at Tom's Barbecue Shack. So Bob, my apologies. I hope I have not soiled your name in a terrible way, and just know that we here at Outside the Box, we love the Lacers competition and everything you guys do to help support this show. Hopefully the Players Association will get off of my back now. Hope you guys like that. I spent a lot of time thinking.
Way to turn it around, Bob.
All right,
good job,
moving on.
Bob.
Well, there's one detail though. Like what I think we forgot to mention was, even though there was Velcro involved with Bob, we forgot to mention that he had to actually make the Velcro go through the standard lace hole, which actually made it 10 times more complicated. So he actually,
yes, So in a sense, Bob was doing more with less, but that's not my place to judge. Okay, let's talk about a few other things. There's a really cool story here about running, as I am a runner. Vivo Barefoot is changing the game. They're taking out cushioning from your shoes. I feel like there's been a lot of this happening here and there. Like it'll happen, then it doesn't happen. Like some people do it and then they pull back off of it. And again, I'm going to lean on you, Tiffany. I feel like this is something that Tinker's brother did this. That's how we kind of came with the Nike Free, because he went to Stanford. Was it Stanford where the guys were running without shoes on the track? Was that Stanford?
I think it was in Germany.
Was it in Germany?
Somewhere.
Okay, so I'm totally wrong place. totally different place on the earth. Good. Go ahead. No, make me feel worse about it.
A university. Yeah. He went to a university.
Yeah. No, I went to a university. It's great. It's great. First I mess up on Bob. Now you're telling me I'm wrong about Tinker's brother. It's cool. So this movement, it seems kind of dangerous to take cushioning out of shoes, and I say that, but I also realize that people ran for years and did things for years without shoes on. So what's the good and the bad of this story?
Yeah, I was surprised actually when I saw this article. I thought, oh, this is from a couple years ago, but it's not. Well, you look at the Chuck Taylor. How many people played basketball in the Chuck Taylor for how long? Like decades. Right. And I mean, the question I would have is, did it shorten their career? Like the repeated pounding of the foot in running and sports, like and this is all just my own personal opinion, if over time that has to wear on the body, right? So not having cushioning at all, although it's good for, as we see in Nike Free, it's good for flexibility and foot strength. But is it really that good for your joints? And people notice like back pain and stuff like that. Like a lot of times everything that's having issues in your body sometimes is related to what's going on in your feet and the shoes you're wearing and the cushioning. So I think this is a very kind of heated conversation. I know personally I like React and Boost. I like cushioning under my feet. But if there's a sport or something I'm doing where I need to feel the ground and have more perception of exactly what my feet are feeling, then I would think that this would be great. But as a shoe to wear 24/7 all day long, no, for me, absolutely not. I
think you made an interesting point about athletes, right? Like, I would even argue that like athletes, just in general, like, I mean, technology, on the medical side, to heal athletes has grown tremendously over the past however long. But I think that probably, like going back to the Roger Federer conversation, I think that probably the products that these athletes are using and the amount of technology that's put into these products allow them to play whatever sport it is that much longer than they used to. So I don't see any company taking this kind of barefoot. Don't get me wrong, like I think that it's interesting and I think that there are some people out there that want to feel that like more natural, but I don't ever see this becoming something that is at like the highest of levels, right? Like for the most part, you're always going to see someone in, the pinnacle running shoe, and it's not going to be it's not to call it a sales gimmick, but like it feels very gimmicky considering how many brands have already gone through this, okay, we have, 12 variations of whatever free or, the natural running shoe for that particular brand. So I don't know, it seems kind of like I just don't see a whole lot of opportunity for that to have a huge market, considering a lot of people already have a comfort level with the brands and the cushioning that they like. It would take a lot to get somebody to totally jump ship and say, oh, I'm going this different direction.
No, I understand. I think I kind of feel like the barefoot low cushioning thing, it's definitely more of a spurts thing than it is like Tiffany said, a 24/7 thing. It's something like, oh, okay, for this workout I'm going to do that, but not something that I'm going to do consistently. I got that. And another quick note, looks like Kanye West has a new website called We Got Love. For those that have been around the sneaker world and around the fashion world for a while, you will remember Kanye University. This is back in 2007, Nick? Around 2007, 2008?
Yeah, something like that. It might have even been a little bit before that when it started, but the new site is interesting because it only has 3 videos on it as of right now. And they don't really, it's hard to kind of tie them together even. But, going back to the old site, the reason why I think this new one is even interesting, aside from if you're a Kanye fan or not, like when regardless of how you feel about him, he has a very powerful presence in the fashion and sneaker world specifically. And back in that, 2006, 2008 era, Kanye's site was like the hype beast of that era. I mean, hype beast was around, but it was very like, it was just it became like the staple of the sites that you were checking if you were into sneakers and you were into streetwear and fashion. And it was like, I think like for me it was like Honey, which was the Japanese site that a lot of people like blogged on. Jeff Staple, I think maybe Kaz, some of those kind of artists and brand owners or founders. And then Kanye's site, and then Hypebeast, like they really owned that whole conversation. But because Kanye was so big and was, it was just out there so much, even at that time. This is obviously pre-Kardashian fame and him being like, probably most recognized person in the world at this point. I think it's interesting. So I'm interested to see what happens from it if he starts creating content for it, and if there's a space for it, because obviously the blog world has even, kind of diminished over the past 5 to 6 years, and people have moved to more specifically to platforms like Instagram or Facebook or Twitter to kind of tell their stories and put their messages out there. So
definitely true. So if you want to check that out, that's wegotlove.com. And one last story, going back to the whole sustainability thing, it looks like Nike actually made the Super Eagle World Cup kits out of plastic bottles. And this is something I feel like Nike has been doing a long time with their uniforms and their kits, using plastic bottles as a way to kind of add recyclable materials into the design. But it's not just adding them into the design, there's actually some benefits, or they're incorporating that material into their current design goals of either making the kits lighter or more breathable or look better or fit better, which I think is the way to go, not just being able to say, hey, we made World Cup kits out of plastic bottles. Too bad the USA won't have a kit because they're not in the World Cup, but that's an entirely different show. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
that seems like a practice
kit. USA gets a practice kit. As always, want to thank you guys for listening to the show, and have a note here from Greg, who is the head of the Lacers Competitive Shoe Lacing Racing League. Please get our name right. It is the Lacers Competitive Shoe Lacing Racing League. We are professionals, and we appreciate being spoken to and of like professionals. My bad, Greg. And Greg, fall back on the attitude just a little bit. All right. Thank you guys for listening. This is the Outside the Box podcast. I am Jacques Slade. You can find me all over the internet at Kusto, which is Kustoo. But this podcast really wouldn't be what it is without the other two individuals here on this show. They give the insight, they give the deep thought, they give the strategy, and I am the one that just makes things up out of nowhere. So let's start with Nick. Nick, tell them who you are, where you're
Nick
from.
Engvall, NickEngvall. You can find me on all platforms under that name. I also have a site called Sneaker History. You can find at Sneaker History on all the platforms as well. But most importantly here, we'll save the best for last. Tiffany, tell them where they can find you.
Tiffany Beers, Tiffany Beers. You can find me on Instagram and YouTube. Please subscribe on my YouTube channel, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
Shameless.
Yeah, no. Subscribe to Tiffany. If you're listening right now, go subscribe to Tiffany's channel. There's a link down in the description, or if you're listening on your headphones, go to YouTube and just type in Tiffany Beers, and her channel will come. Make sure you guys subscribe to her channel. As always, we appreciate you. Make sure you leave us comments about things you want us to talk to. Maybe you'll make it into the next show if you tweet us something on Twitter, or you gram us something on Instagram. Is that a comment up to us? I don't know. Okay, I'm not cool. I'm not hip at all, and I'm just proving that wholeheartedly here today. All right, guys, thank you for listening, and we'll see you and talk to you soon. Peace.